I found the story of the Yiddish theater very, very interesting, one of the more interesting stories. And I found every little Yiddish theater. But one great story had to do with Boris Thomashefsky. He was so well liked as an actor that New York Mahavs, big deals, wouldn't allow him to play in New York. So he had to play in this hick town in Philadelphia, all these hick towns. So he spent 1889 and 1890 in Philadelphia. And he caused a real furor here, because here he goes to this little theater. There's a great picture in the book of this little theater with a sign in Yiddish outside. So he's here about a year, and Adler, Jacob Adler comes over, who was the greatest Yiddish actor. And he says, "Oh, I'm going up to New York and try to get Adler to come down here to Philadelphia." So he finally does. He comes down to you get a kick out of this next part. He gets Adler, and Adler comes down here, and they play together. And I think they put on two performances. It was a little shy on evidence about what happened. I was surprised, but I had a lot of information. I had to fill it in with my own thoughts. But this part was said. The next part, he said that we enjoyed Philadelphia. We enjoyed the nighttime, the light time, and Adler was a great dancing. And we went all over, and after everything was over, we went to the Heilige Häuser. You know what they are?
But you should explain.
Well, in Yiddish, it means, I don't know if I'm saying the Yiddish right, happy houses. And happy houses were bawdy houses, let me put it nicely. And so they spent every night there, and they liked it evidently in this neighborhood. And they were all the girls were Jewish in the houses. But they bring another side of the immigrant life. The Yiddish theater was the most popular, but it had a problem because the people didn't earn that much for food. So how could they spend a quarter on going to the theater and deprive their own children? They have these massive families, so it was hard. But this was a little theater, and Boris Thomashefsky, you should read some of this stuff. His father would write the story. And he would write the story, and then at the end, he would leave 3 pages blank. He would give him the story, say, "Here it is," and then the last 3 pages would be blank. So he says to his father, in Yiddish, of course, why don't you write how this thing ends? He says, his father don't know, you're a smart guy, you end it. There's a lot of that going on. Then the first Yiddish show they gave in Philadelphia, they didn't make it clear whether it was in Yiddish or German. So they advertised it in a German neighborhood. So the whole theater was filled up with German, pretty wealthy Germans who came to see this play. And the play was all in Yiddish. Well, they started booing and started walking out. And Thomashefsky says there was a couple of people left in the balcony. But he said, we continue with the whole show. But it shows you the beginning. And they didn't have the notoriety or the actors, or just the audiences they had in New York. But for a short time, the Yiddish theater here in Philadelphia was very big. And when the Yiddish actors in New York would get into trouble, they'd come down to the Art Street Theater. The Art Street Theater was very big. It sat about 3,000 people. And it had been used by the greatest actors we had in the United States, and then was finally taken over by one of Thomashefsky's brothers. And they put on all the famous shows, and all the famous actors came down and would act here. And then in 1930 or 31, just about the time that Hitler was coming to power, they had most of the protest meetings in Philadelphia at the Art Street Theater. It was torn down in 1936, but it was the biggest building for the Jews to use for protests. It was not in the Jewish quarter. The Jewish quarter used the B'nai Abraham for protests, and that only sat about 1,400 people.